Usually when we think about ancient texts, specifically like royal speeches, there's this expectation of, I don't know, distance and hierarchy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you picture a king standing on some high gilded balcony, right? Draped in these heavy robes, basically just talking down to a sea of peasants.
Right, yeah.
And the entire rhetorical goal is usually just to remind everyone exactly who's in charge, how great the king is, and, why they should be completely terrified of him.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional ancient Near Eastern template is essentially just a massive flex.
Yeah.
It usually reads something like, I am the king, the gods love me. I destroyed literally all of my enemies, and therefore you owe me your taxes and your unwavering obedience.
Right. Hand over your grain.
Exactly.
But then you step into the world of the Book of Mormon, and specifically this epic temple sermon delivered by King Benjamin, and suddenly that whole traditional template is just completely shattered. We're looking at a text that takes every assumption about power and leadership and royalty and just it turns it entirely inside out.
It really does. It is the absolute definition of a paradigm shift. Benjamin uses his ultimate moment of power to voluntarily bring himself down to the dirt.
Yeah, it's wild. So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to decode this ancient farewell address, and we want to discover how an ancient king's final speech contains not just brilliant hidden rhetorical genius, which it does, but also a surprisingly practical manual for your everyday life. And to do this, we've got an amazing stack of sources for you today. We're pulling insights from a scholarly linguistic journal that decodes ancient Hebrew wordplay.
Which is fascinating.
So cool. We also have an academic book summarizing the text structure, a theological educational video guide, and even a modern mother's blog post about applying these exact ancient principles to raising kids today.
A really great mix of perspectives.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, let's unpack this. Can we start by just setting the historical stage? Like, who exactly is King Benjamin, and what is the political climate when he steps up to this podium?
Yeah, so to understand the sheer weight of this speech, you really have to understand the man and the moment. According to the academic summary we have by John W. Welch and Stephen D. Ricks, this isn't just, a casual retirement address.
Right, he's not just getting a gold watch.
No. It operates on multiple, highly sophisticated levels, all at the exact same time. It's a coronation text for his son. It's an ancient farewell address from a dying king, a prophetic lawsuit holding his people accountable, and a covenant renewal ceremony.
Wow. All in one.
All in one speech. And structurally, it's a masterpiece. It utilizes complex ancient poetic forms like chiasmus.
Okay, wait, let's pause on that for a second for anyone who might be unfamiliar. Chiasmus isn't just like rhyming words away. It's more of a structural way of organizing ideas.
Precisely. Think of chiasmus as mirror poetry.
Mirror poetry. Okay.
Yeah. So in Western writing, we usually build up to a climax at the very end of a story. Or an essay, right?
Right, like the big reveal at the end.
Exactly. But in ancient Near Eastern chiasmus, the ideas fold in on themselves symmetrically. So it goes like A, B, C, and then in reverse C, B, A.
Okay, see.
So the climax, the most important point of the entire text, is placed dead in the center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the architectural genius of Benjamin's speech is that the exact structural center focuses entirely on the atoning blood of Christ.
So the structure itself is literally pointing the listener to the core message.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And the guy delivering it, I mean, he isn't just a philosopher or a poet. He's a hardened military veteran.
Very much so. Historically, Benjamin was a warrior king. He brought what the text calls continual peace to the land of Zarahemla.
Which was a big deal.
A huge deal. Zarahemla was essentially this bustling capital city that had historically seen a ton of division. And he didn't achieve that peace just by, negotiating treaties behind closed doors. The text notes he literally wielded the sword of Laban.
Which is like their Excalibur.
Yeah, think of it as this culture's legendary ancestral relic. And he used it to drive out the Lamanites, who were a hostile invading military force. He shed blood alongside his own soldiers.
Wow.
But now he's old. He knows he's dying. And he has gathered his people to the temple to officially pass the crown to his son, Mosiah.
Okay, wait. I have to push back here for a second because from a purely political standpoint, this seems like a terrible strategy.
How so?
Well, if I am transferring power to my son, right, In a region that has a history of instability, the last thing I want to do is tell the peasants I'm just as weak as they are.
Right. You want to look strong.
Exactly. I want to look invincible. Yet Benjamin spends an enormous amount of time putting himself on the exact same level as the poorest person in the crowd. He literally tells them, I am like as yourselves, subject to all manner of infirmities in body and mind.
Yeah.
Why would a royal family trying to solidify power purposefully strip away their own mystique like that?
And that is the paradox that makes this text so revolutionary. This democratization isn't like a PR blunder. It's a highly intentional theological maneuver.
Okay.
By bringing himself down to the dust, he is actually fulfilling an ancient biblical requirement.
Really?
Yeah, found in Deuteronomy 17.20, which strictly warns kings not to lift their hearts above their brethren.
Oh, wow.
So Benjamin is intentionally leveling the playing field, and he's doing it because he isn't just transferring a political crown to Mosiah. He is preparing to give his entire people a new name and a completely new royal identity.
Yeah. Just think about how that applies today.
Yes.
Because you see modern corporate leaders or politicians failing at this exact principle all the time.
Oh, constantly.
They consolidate power by creating distance, right? By making themselves seem totally untouchable.
Yep.
And Benjamin does the exact opposite. He realizes you can't elevate other people if you are busy elevating yourself.
That's a perfect modern parallel. He strips away his own royal exceptionalism because he intends to make everyone in that crowd exceptional.
I love that.
And this leads directly into the hidden way he delivers this new identity, which is a layer of the text that is completely invisible if you don't look at the underlying ancient languages.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting, you guys. Because this scholarly article we read by Matthew Bowen dives into the actual etymology of the name Benjamin.
Right.
And in English today, it's just, a common first name. You probably know 3 Benjamins.
Definitely do.
But in ancient Hebrew, names were not just labels. They were your destiny. Bowen breaks down the fact that Benjamin is actually made up of 2 Hebrew words.
Mm-hmm.
Bowen means sun, and Yamin means right hand, or directionally, south.
And that literal translation, son of the right hand, carries massive cultural and theological weight in the ancient Israelite tradition.
Right. And there's this really powerful biblical backstory to that name with the matriarch Rachel.
Yes, from Genesis.
Yeah, when she was dying in childbirth, she originally named her newborn Benoni, which translates to son of my sorrow. But her husband, Jacob, intervened and renamed the boy Benjamin. Why the immediate name change there?
Because Jacob understood the power of a name. He did not want his son's identity tied to grief and death. By renaming him Benjamin, he shifted the boy's entire destiny.
Wow.
In ancient Near Eastern courts, the right hand was the position of ultimate favor, power, and authority. To be the son of the right hand was to be the chosen heir.
So it's the ultimate position of honor.
Exactly. It's the positive, powerful association of being seated right next to the king.
Okay, so just picture this scene for a second. King Benjamin is standing there delivering his final address, and his very name literally means son of the right hand.
Right.
And then he starts weaving in these ancient coronation texts. Bowen points out that Benjamin heavily references Psalm 2.7, which says, "Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee," and Psalm 110.1, "Sit thou at my right hand."
Yeah, the royal psalms.
Exactly. Now, traditionally, those are highly exclusive Davidic texts. They were only spoken to the single royal individual getting the physical crown placed on their head.
Only the king.
But Benjamin is speaking to a massive crowd of everyday farmers, laborers, and just, regular families. So instead of placing the crown on his son Mosiah's head, is Benjamin metaphorically placing it on the head of every single person listening?
What's fascinating here is, yes, that is exactly what he's doing, and it is the genius of the speech.
Wow.
He is taking the most exclusive royal coronation texts available and entirely democratizing them. He looks at this crowd of just ordinary people and tells them that through a covenant, they are all becoming sons and daughters at the right hand of God.
He's making them all royalty.
He is essentially making them all royalty, yes.
But the twist is, and I think this is such a profound display of humility for an absolute monarch, he doesn't name them after himself.
No, he doesn't.
Because think about it. If I'm an ancient king and my name means son of the right hand, and I'm elevating my people to the right hand, the temptation to say, congratulations, you are all Benjamins now, remember my legacy forever.
Yeah.
That would be overwhelming.
Oh, it would be the ultimate ego trip.
Totally.
But Benjamin demurs his own name. He uses the literal meaning of his name purely as a rhetorical vehicle, just as a teaching tool.
Right.
Instead of giving them his own name, he gives them the name of the true son of the right hand, which is Christ. He tells them they are spiritually begotten, becoming the children of Christ, his sons and his daughters.
That is beautiful.
It is. He completely removes himself from the center of the narrative to point them toward a divine identity.
It's a stunning piece of theological wordplay.
Mm.
But, accepting this royal adoption, taking on this new throne name, it isn't automatic.
No.
It requires a choice, a covenant. And the sources make it explicitly clear that rejecting this adoption or breaking the covenant has severe consequences. Because we talked about the power of the right hand, but there's a terrifying alternative here.
Yeah, if the right hand represents power, favor, and royal adoption, the left hand represents cosmic disinheritance.
Yikes.
Yeah. Benjamin warns his people that whoever refuses to take upon them the name of Christ, or whoever takes it and then rebels against it, will find themselves on the left hand of God.
And Bowen's article brings in some ancient Near Eastern legal context for this that makes it, so much heavier than just a metaphor about sitting in the wrong seat at a banquet.
Far heavier. Bowen links this concept of the left hand and having your name blotted out to ancient Babylonian legal formulas.
Okay, how do those work?
In those ancient legal systems, adoption and disinheritance were formal public declarations. So if a son rebelled against his father or broke the family covenant, the father would declare a specific formula, something like, you are not my son.
Wow, just completely cutting them off.
Exactly. It wasn't just a loss of future wealth. It was a formal renunciation. You lost your identity, your legal protection, your entire place in the community.
It's the ancient equivalent of chiseling a disgraced pharaoh's throne name off an Egyptian obelisk. If you allow the name to be blotted out through transgression, your royal identity is entirely effaced. You are literally no longer part of the family.
And that's why Benjamin's warning is so stark. To lose that name is to be left completely exposed and unprotected.
So how do we end up losing that name? How do we fall into that state of disinheritance?
Yeah.
Because the sources suggest the greatest threat isn't, an invading army of Lamanites. It's something Benjamin calls the natural man.
Right, the internal threat.
Yeah. And to understand the mechanics of this, I just love the Book of Mormon video guide's visual analogy. It introduces this concept of spiritual crocodiles.
It's an incredibly evocative analogy because it illustrates exactly how spiritual danger actually operates in our daily lives.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that the natural man, which is our base, instinctual, selfish, comfort-seeking nature, is highly vulnerable to hidden dangers.
Right.
Think about a thirsty animal going down to a watering hole. It's just looking for a quick drink, looking for relief. Yeah. It doesn't see the crocodile perfectly camouflaged in the mud.
Waiting just below the surface.
Exactly. And the video guide makes the point that these spiritual crocodiles don't usually attack by making us outright cartoonishly evil overnight.
No.
Instead, they pacify us. They lull us into this carnal sense of security.
They flatter us away. The danger isn't always a roaring lion. Sometimes it's a log floating quietly in the water that suddenly snaps.
Yeah, it's like malware that runs quietly in the background of your computer.
Yeah.
You click on something that seems harmless and the malware installs itself.
Yeah.
You don't even know your operating system has been compromised until the whole thing just crashes. And in our modern lives, that pacification could be doom scrolling on your phone for 3 hours a night.
Oh, absolutely.
Or letting cynicism slowly creep into how you talk to your spouse. We don't wake up wanting to ruin our lives. We just get complacent.
And this complacency, this yielding to the natural man, it connects deeply to the video guide's broader theological lesson on the fundamental laws of justice and mercy.
Okay, how so?
Well, when we fall prey to those spiritual crocodiles, when we let our base instincts dictate our actions, we break eternal laws. We unbalance the scales of justice.
And justice isn't just some arbitrary rule somebody made up. It's a fundamental law of the universe. It demands payment. The scales have to be balanced.
They do. But here's the brutal reality the text presents. We are entirely incapable of balancing those scales on our own.
Right.
We simply don't have the spiritual capital to pay the debt. This is why the video guide emphasizes that we absolutely require a mediator.
Someone to step in.
Yes. It is only through the atonement of Christ, the true Son of the right hand, paying that debt on our behalf, that the natural man can actually be defeated.
Because Benjamin explicitly calls the natural man an enemy to God.
Exactly. You can't just train the natural man to be slightly better. The text says we must experience a mighty change of heart. The very core of our desires has to shift so that we become, in his words, submissive, meek, humble, patient, full of love.
But, this raises a huge practical question for me.
Okay.
Because it's one thing to marvel at ancient Hebrew wordplay, or to parse out the complex theological mechanics of justice, mercy, and the natural man on a whiteboard.
Sure.
It's an entirely different thing to figure out how to apply those mechanics on a Tuesday morning when your kids are fighting, or when the team you manage at work is completely overwhelmed by a toxic corporate culture.
And that is the beauty of looking at diverse sources. The blog post we're reviewing perfectly bridges that gap between the ancient throne room and the modern living room.
Yes, let's dive into that blog post. It's titled Parenting 201. And this is written by a modern mother who essentially views King Benjamin not just as an ancient monarch, but as the ultimate modern parenting and leadership model.
It's a great perspective.
It is. She points out that Benjamin didn't just stand at a podium and teach beautiful, abstract sermons. He was an active, fierce gatekeeper for his people.
Very active.
Yeah, the historical text notes that he had zero tolerance for false teachers and worldly influences, and he actively punished them according to the law to protect his society.
He was a multifaceted leader. I mean, he wielded the literal sword of Laban against physical threats to his borders.
Right.
But he also wielded the sword of justice against spiritual threats to his people's minds and hearts. He actively curated the influences that were allowed into his community.
So how does a modern listener translate that? If you are a parent trying to manage your kids' screen time, or maybe a manager trying to protect your team from burnout and negativity, how do you act as a gatekeeper against things like YouTube algorithms, toxic social media, constant modern cultural pressures?
It's tough.
It is. And crucially, how do you do that without becoming a tyrant? Because the video guide makes a huge point about the necessity of agency.
Yes, agency is key.
It states that agency requires opposition, law, and the power to choose. If you just lock your kids in a protective bubble and remove all choices, you aren't really respecting their agency, right?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see Benjamin's true genius in how he balanced protection with agency.
Okay, how did he do it?
Yes, he was a firm gatekeeper who banned the bad, but he knew that nature abhors a vacuum. He didn't just clear out the toxic influences and leave an empty void. He actively cultivated the good. The blog post points out that he brought in holy men who spoke with power and authority. He didn't just play defense, he played a massive proactive offense.
What does that proactive offense look like practically today? Because if I take away my kid's iPad because the algorithm is feeding them garbage, I can't just tell them to go stare at a blank wall.
Exactly. For you, the listener, whether you are leading a family, mentoring a youth group, or running a department at work, gatekeeping means more than just wielding a modern sword to cut out the toxic influences.
Right.
You have to flood that newly cleared space with positive, uplifting truths.
You basically have to replace the cheap dopamine of the spiritual crocodile with something genuinely nourishing.
That's the mechanism of a mighty change of heart. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. You curate the environment.
Yeah.
You introduce them to the right voices, the right books, the right conversations around the dinner table, so they are equipped to make the independent choice to take upon themselves that higher identity. You are setting the stage for them to choose the right hand over the left hand.
Which brings us to the ultimate crescendo of this ancient address. Because everything King Benjamin did, the wars he fought to protect his borders, the sermons he preached, the brilliant linguistic poetry he crafted, it all drove toward one singular ultimate goal for his people.
It did.
And that goal is just as relevant for you listening right now as it was thousands of years ago in Zarahemla.
The ultimate goal of Benjamin's entire life's work was to see his people sealed as God's own. Yes. Matthew Bowen's linguistic article brings in two vital Hebrew concepts to explain this climax. The first is segula, which translates to a peculiar, precious, or special possession. And the second is hatam, which is the verb meaning to seal.
Let's visualize that ancient sealing process for a minute, because I think it makes the theology so concrete. How did an ancient cylinder seal actually work?
So in the ancient Near Eastern world, a seal wasn't just a sticker, right?
Right.
To mark a document, a treaty, or a valuable object as your personal legally binding possession, you would use a cylinder seal. This was a small, intricately carved stone.
Okay.
You would press that stone and roll it into wet clay or mud that was attached to the object.
Oh, I see.
And that wet clay would then permanently take on the exact image and the superscription of the seal's owner. It was a mark of absolute ownership and protection.
Wow.
By urging his people to take upon themselves the name of Christ, by guiding them through that mighty change of heart where their rigid natural desires become soft and submissive like wet clay.
Like wet clay. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, Benjamin is saying that we are allowing God to press his seal upon us.
Yeah.
We bear his image and his superscription. We are permanently marked as his special royal possession.
Man, it is such a profound and intimate shift in perspective. We started this deep dive with the image of a traditional, egotistical king demanding loyalty and taxes from his terrified peasants.
Yep.
But King Benjamin takes his royal platform
Yeah.
and the very meaning of his own name and just shatters that entire dynamic. He effectively tells his people, I am not the king you should be looking at. I'm just a guy sitting in the dirt next to you. The real king of the universe is offering to adopt you, to give you his name, and to seat you at his right hand.
It is an open invitation to step out of the dirt and onto a throne, provided we are willing to let go of the natural man to get there.
Beautifully said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over or explore on your own. If King Benjamin used the literal meaning of his own name, son of the right hand, not as a badge of his own superiority, but as a rhetorical tool to point his people toward a higher divine identity. What everyday labels, job titles, or roles in your own life are you currently accepting as just who you are? And how might you redefine those labels today to claim a much higher royal identity for yourself?